Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today for this very special edition of a Buy Now Slab event with BNB Chain, and of course with two very special guests, Alex from Wombat Exchange and Adelia from Helio Protocol. Hello to you both. Today we'll be focusing on the state of stables. So we've seen a lot of, in true, as I'm sure both of you know very well, kind of a lot of change, a lot of disruption over the last few months when it comes to the stablecoin industry. Loads of different currents and trends that we'll be talking about today. So thank you all for tuning in from all over the world. I think people are jumping in from on Twitter and YouTube, mostly probably on Twitter. And if you do have questions, please put them in the group. Directly on YouTube, and we'll do our best to answer them. But to kick things off, I would love intros to you both. So maybe to kick off with Adelia from Helio Protocol, would love an intro to yourself. And Helio.
Hi everyone, I'm Adelia. I'm the marketing lead at Helio Protocol. It's really a pleasure for me to be here today. Just a quick background on myself. So like I just shared, I currently lead the marketing efforts at Helio. Previously, I come from a background in management consulting and also, in finance. But I've also, worked at marketing, doing B2C marketing for about 2.5 years. So I'm just really, interested in the space, have been Web3 curious and really into the crypto DeFi space since 2021. So currently, I'm really happy to be working here with Helio and to advance the stablecoin agenda and the BNB chain as a whole.
Adelia, you've gone from crypto curious to absolutely crypto native.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it.
In the industry. So welcome. Thank you for joining. Hey Alex, I feel like you're probably used to a few of these YouTube Live, Twitter Spaces events. I think for the BNB Chain community who have been to a few events, they should know you by now.
Yeah, I hope so.
We hope so. Exactly.
Yeah, I hope you guys pay attention. So obviously, I'm the founder of Wombat Exchange. So a bit of background. So I started out as a quant trader. I was a software engineer, blockchain engineer, and then I just fell in love with crypto. I fell in love with after I learned about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and here I am. I think just building and meeting such cool people like Marwin and everyone from BNB Chain, like Helio Protocol. It's been a great ride, and obviously there's a long journey ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we can all agree on that in terms of even with the recent kind of perhaps volatility that we've seen in the market. I think that the long-term picture is that we all believe in is adoption is still early, and there's a lot more room and growth for adoption, right? Especially when it comes to stables, right? So keen to get your thoughts on the journey for how you got involved in the stablecoin space, right? Or getting involved in supporting stables, right? From a Wombat perspective, maybe starting with you, Alex.
Well, I think for the most part, the stablecoin space is it's really a fundamental part of the crypto ecosystem. I think mainly it's really kind of maybe a psychological thing that maybe in part because it's how we view prices in general. Usually using USD as a base really works, and it just makes more sense for everyone when they view a price. When they talk about Bitcoin, Ethereum pricing, everyone. Back then they talked about Bitcoin at 20,000, 60,000. It's really all in USD, right? So the allure of just pegged assets. I think if you think about it, it's just it's really one of the first implementations of a real asset peg to crypto, and I think that's it's easy to visualize, but I think it is essential for the space to grow. I'm always fascinated by the ability for a token to peg to a certain value, because it's kind of sexy because it's not as easy as it sounds. Having a mechanism that can balance and maintain confidence, it gives confidence to the end user. I think that leads to trust, and trust is one of the things that'll help push DeFi, in my opinion, to new heights. I think, and on top of that, pushing that kind of DeFi crypto narrative, you need stablecoins, and that's why I think it's really why I got interested in it, and why I think this is one of the most important spaces in crypto.
And then specifically Wombat, focusing as a decentralized exchange, focusing on stable swaps? Like what opportunity did you initially see on BNB chain to do that?
Well, I think like we invented Wombat because we saw like a huge issue with Curve and their designs. I mean, I love Curve, not putting it down, but there are issues with it because in terms of scalability, ease of use. I mean, you look at Curve right now; it's so complicated, it's hard to use, and that's really an inhibiting factor for people that want crypto adoption. Like, you don't want something that looks like a scientist needs to read it. You need something simple. I think that's what we've brought. I think that's one of the things that we solved, and hopefully it'll help blossom the DeFi space.
Yeah, I mean, you often hear that kind of Web 2 has actually set a new and very high standard for user experience and ease of use, right? And so you constantly have to kind of meet that bar of expectation, because if you don't, then it's friction, or users may drop off. So noted on that. And how about yourself, Adelia? How did you and how does Helio fit into this kind of stablecoin paradigm?
Yeah, so for myself personally, but I think I can also speak, for the wider team, is that we just see so much potential in stablecoins in pushing, the whole crypto and DeFi agenda. A lot of the resistance, right, to using, Bitcoin as P2P payments, or other like forms of like tokens, is really in the volatility, right? Like that's really like a big reason why the mass market is honestly quite hesitant to not just to either invest or to implement crypto and to incorporate that in the wider society infrastructure.
No.
So that's why we think that the beauty of stablecoins is that it's like a happy medium, right? It meets in the middle, where we can do something and invent like a digital payments infrastructure that is borderless, permissionless, and all the good stuff that we love, but while also alleviating some of these concerns by the wider market. So really, we see like the potential, right, to bring our vision to life through the usage of stablecoins. But the second thing is also that there's just also so much space for improvement within the stablecoin industry. This year especially has been a very rocky year for the stablecoin landscape, and it really turned a lot of people off from using stablecoins, right? Which we think is really a shame. We think that it can be done better, and we can help address the issues and possibly prevent the historical problems that we have observed in the space. And really, that was the impetus for the team to really band together this summer to, start Helio protocol and bring, our new vision of the stablecoin, which is the destablecoin, to the masses.
Oh, I wanted to ask also about what happened earlier this year, but actually maybe starting with stablecoin, because I'm sure for many people tuning in, they've never heard of what a destablecoin is. So could you explain to us and for everyone what is a destablecoin and how is it different?
Yeah, so a destablecoin is basically two things, right? The first thing is that it's basically for us to move away from the traditional idea of stablecoin and with this new terminology allow us to really break free and create this new asset class. Mm-hmm. And the stablecoin, essentially is a short form for decentralized stablecoins. Right now the stablecoin landscape is very much dominated by centralized options. Not saying they're bad, but they are centralized, and that impedes what we can do in DeFi, which is decentralized finance, quite literally. So that's one thing we really want to differentiate ourselves from. And the second thing is that also reflecting on the past issues, we want to also remind users that stable coins or stable coins, like all forms of cryptocurrency, it's still nascent infrastructure and they are a risk. One reason why stable coins have received so much heat from regulations this year is also because of the issues that we face, right? And we think, to build a more sustainable and educated community, the destablecoin terminology is quite a cheeky way of reminding people there is still some potential minor fluctuation. And, this element of education cannot be, underestimated, right, in terms of its importance. For a community, for regulators to not come down on us, we really need to ensure that everyone in the space is using and investing even in stable coins responsibly. So really these two things have really contributed to the birth of this new asset class, and also contributed to the reason why we chose to name Hey a stable coin rather than a stable coin.
Yeah, I can imagine that the branding exercise that must have taken place when you're thinking
Yeah.
about the name.
Actually, it was very interesting, might I add, because initially, we did fully intend for Hey to launch as a stablecoin. That was what we have been preparing for months, but in the last instance, we decided, heck it, we should rebrand,
Yep.
go for this new stablecoin concept. And ultimately, this is a space that rewards innovation. Hopefully the risk would pay off. But I think, it's really important to put the history of what happened behind us and to start, to clearly demark a new chapter in this industry.
Yep. Yep. And actually, just you mentioned the kind of the tumultuous events of earlier this year, right?
Yeah.
This year has felt very long, perhaps, for those building in this space, that in terms of the highs and the challenges, I guess we've seen. How and maybe Alex, keen to get your perspective, because you're supporting multiple stables, right, including Hey or destablecoin Hey. How do you think about user education? Like how, because I think for many people they still don't really know what the differences are between some of these coins. What are have you been thinking about that yourself?
You mean in terms of like education, how people can like understand it?
Yeah, in terms of things like stable coins, right? Because I think
Yeah,
first of all, introduce people to stables, right? And as a concept, right? Because I think many people still think of crypto as inherently volatile, like not pegged in any way. And then there's the next step, like, okay, there's this world of stables, and then there are multiple stables, right? That all seem to be quite similar. So how do you think about breaking that down?
How do I break it down? I mean, we kind of educate people is that, if you look at the Wombat pools, we're actually separated in different types of classifications, like, different pools for different things. I think by doing this, it helps people understand, like, these types of stablecoins are grouped together for a reason. Because obviously it's more centralized stablecoins. And, like, I think the people really need to understand, I think it's going to be a slow growth, or actually it's not slow growth, but it needs people need to understand, the differences, because like obviously we had that whole issue with Tornado Cash and all that kind of stuff, all these centralized stable coins. And people need to understand that stable coins are such an important part of DeFi is that it really can be understated. So the reason why Wombat has these separate pools is because to make sure people understand that point. So people need to understand that centralized stable coins have different mechanisms than decentralized stable coins. Obviously in centralized stable coins, you really, it is a real world asset. You are actually putting like US dollar to one. But for decentralized stable coins or decentralized stable coins, they're really, there's a huge kind of mathematic liquidation mechanism that's going on that's like keeping it kind of working. So for that, I think it just takes a lot of like education. Obviously, Wombat and Helio, we both have a lot of like medium articles explaining why this is important. And I think, it might take some time, but I think, we're getting there. I think more and more people are adopting Helio. And I think there's tons of protocols that are going to start using Hey as like, as their like base token. So I think it's an exciting thing.
Nice. And maybe, Adila, because I know you have been thinking about this quite a bit. What are the trends that you are seeing more broadly in this space? And you're building a stable coin in a market where, if we think about more than just crypto, traditional finance, right? The risk-free rate there is very different to where it was 2 years ago or even a year ago. And so kind of what are the trends and what are the big things that you're thinking about as you build?
Yep, as we build, there are 3 themes, right, that we are thinking about constantly. Firstly, safety, for obvious reasons. Secondly, is the element of decentralization, right? Because like I said, the space has been very dominated by centralized stable coins. And the third thing, is actually how important it is to guarantee an absolute one-to-one peg. I think the last one, I mentioned is quite interesting because, if you look at MakerDAO, for example, they're actually, thinking about letting DAI go free float. But when, and that's actually the same premise that we had for Hey initially, that we don't want to guarantee a one-to-one peg with the US dollar. I mean, people start to question like, oh, what's the point then? When we first launched, we had people asking us, is Hey going to go to $5, right? No, I think what MakerDAO probably is thinking of, or maybe at least for speaking for ourselves, Helio protocol, right? What we had in mind was that, the idea of the one-to-one peg is, I think, has two reasons, right? Gave, people confidence, using the US dollar, the global reserve currency, right? The second thing is also to ensure that the stable coin has like fluctuations that's reminiscent of a fiat currency.
Yes.
Rather than the same volatility. But I think stablecoin providers like ourselves and potentially MakerDAO are starting to realize that first of all, an absolute one-to-one peg is not really achievable, feasible, right, in the long run. And because if you promise that and you market that out and you get like even a 2% fluctuation, right, people start to wonder if this is going to depeg.
Yes.
And the FUD starts and the panic. And then, that's how some things just start spiraling down. So actually, this is one thing that we wanted to tackle. And I think the second thing is also that if you look at various world currencies, right, like US to euro or US to pound even, these are the ratio, the interest rate parity between them always fluctuates, right? But it doesn't mean that
well, painfully
well. Yeah, I know, right? Living in the UK. We have that feeling. So always, there are fluctuations, but despite the memes that the pound is the shit coin of 2022, but in reality it's not, right? It's still a currency that people somewhat trust, maybe less so these days. So it's actually, the idea of stable coins having some fluctuation, but not like going to 10 cents or it's natural, right? It's part of economics and part of macroeconomic stimulation. So it's exactly, what we wanted to encourage, like a new mentality and a new mindset when thinking about stable coins, right? Is really if you want it to behave like a fiat currency, right? There will be changes because fiat currency also fluctuates, right? It's never fixed, right? So that's really a key theme, that we have been looking at these days. And I think, with MakerDAO on board, I really think that this could be an emerging trend within the stablecoin space. Yeah.
No, clear. Actually, I realized we're getting some pretty good questions from the community, which we'll get to shortly. But Alex, what are the big trends or big themes you're following in the broader stablecoin landscape?
I think Adelia really hit it on the point. I think actually, if you actually dive into the realm of stablecoins, like I guess like we have stablecoins, a centralized stablecoin is actually one of the most profitable things, not named Binance or FTX or something or Coinbase. So they're actually a very profitable thing. So, but in reality, it's like this isn't really shared towards the end user, and I think this is why like projects like Hey and Helio, having like sustainable kind of like yield to the user is important because basically USDT is a gigantic company that's actually really profitable, but it should be kind of shared back to the community, I think. And I think for me in terms of like trends, I think US like centralized stablecoins is really what really did kickstart everyone's love for crypto, because it was like the holy grail. It was like basically like Bitcoin settled on chain, but it was stable and had purchasing power. And without these stable coins, we wouldn't have decentralized finance, all this boom, NFTs and all that kind of stuff. So I think the next stage is really like over collateralized stable coins like K and Helio, because they're really, that is the next step of evolution. I think like everyone here acknowledges our industry is very nascent. You can't just jump to pure decentralization. You need a gradual kind of like push. And I think from a centralized solution to kind of like over collateral solution, and then eventually maybe someone will figure out a fully decentralized one. I don't know yet, but I mean, everyone will want to try it because it's a sexy kind of thing. So I think we've gone through all these phases. DAI, LUSD, Hey, it is really, we are still pushing the notion of decentralization in this kind of like direction. I think that's a beautiful thing.
And actually, as part of shaping that direction, and it actually relates to some of the questions coming from the community. How is and we can maybe start with Helio. And you touched on it, but how was the project? Well, how is Helio different in terms of disrupting the stablecoin landscape? But specifically as well, with some questions here about they're difficult. These are difficult market conditions. Can you speak also to the sustainability of it, right? And when you think about why it's different and how you can kind of give people that confidence.
Wow, such a multi-dimensional question.
Yeah,
I'll do my best to
lots
answer.
to unpack.
You can do it.
So,
Yeah.
I love a challenge. Anyway, so I think the first sub question to look at would be what makes Hey different, and I think that's a fair question, right? There are two angles to look at. The first angle, comparing Hey to, let's say, BUSD, USDC, USDT, and then the short answer for that is the element of decentralization. Because for USDT, BUSD, USDC, they are centralized custodians, they are regulating these stable coins. And there are also, lots of fiat reserves, maintaining this peg, this one-to-one peg. And even so, sometimes USDT depegs by 1%, and that sends lots of, panic throughout like the industry, right? So the question is how efficient, right, are these funds? Even after committing so much capital to this and so much resources, is it really, that useful? And we compromise the element of decentralization, which so many people in this space love and care about. So it's really the element of decentralization when comparing Hey against these options. Well, then the next cut that we could look at, right, is comparing Hey to other like crypto-backed stablecoins such as DAI or even VAI, right, which is MakerDAO and Venus protocols stablecoins respectively. In that sense, that the main selling point for Helio would be that Helio's Hey is more capital efficient simply because we do liquid staking on the BNB collateral they deposit. So for me, like if I could just backtrack a little bit, you basically have to deposit BNB, and then from then that's the only way you can mint Hey. And what we do with the BNB that we receive as collateral is that we undergo liquid staking of the BNB. And this helps do things, right? This helps Helio protocol to generate additional revenue, like in a way passive income that we redistribute to the users. And this also and these rewards, right, that we generate from liquid staking would then be redistributed through the Hey single staking. So that's how people can get a relatively higher APY when they single stake Hey on our platform, compared to if you were to undergo staking of other stable coins. The second element is also, a bit of decentralization. For example, DAI is mainly collateralized by USDC, for example, which in itself is a centralized asset, whereas Hey is using BNB, which is a much more decentralized asset than USDC. So, in that sense, we also can claim that we are more decentralized in that sense, and that Hey itself is a token completely regulated by decentralized assets. So it's really these two, these are the two cuts that I can say, helps show that we are more differentiated from these two groups of competitors. And we offer, the same benefits that you might enjoy from using DAI, for example, because we are also over collateralized with an LTV ratio of 66%, which is what MakerDAO uses. So, it's the same level of security and safety, the same level of collateralization that we are using to cushion any impact in case of any economic shocks or black swan events, they say. So, really, Hey, offers the same things, but even more. And that's what we really hope to bring to the table. What's the next sub question? I think I've spoken too much, so I forgot. What else?
Yeah, no, Adelia, actually,
I think you killed it. That was
great
great.
job at
All right, perfect.
You told a great story. I think you killed it. Yeah, I'm just like going like, yeah, I'm. I
was like, damn, on point.
We're having Alex. I realize there's a question here as well about, and this goes to what makes Wombat exchange different. Maybe against vis-a-vis other dexes on BNB chain, and maybe also other stable swaps, more generally speaking. And there's a question here like, Wombat uses a new technology to reduce slippage. What is so special about this technology? So maybe a kind of similar question to you.
Yeah. So one of the things that Wombat does different, we have a completely different algorithm and design. So it's on the surface, it looks like it's really simple. Obviously, there's a lot of math involved to get that to happen. So as a result, we have a very easy to use interface, and I think that's important to push adoption, because I think, you know, simplicity is one of the most beautiful things in the world. So I think one of the things that really makes Wombat stand out is not only scalability. So any pool, we can keep adding all the new stable coins, like. But on Curve, obviously, an ellipsis, you look at when they add like a new pool, they have to pair up like a token plus a 3 CRV, all that kind of stuff. And that makes it everything really convoluted and messy. But there's actually another thing that's really problematic with kind of the Curve design. For example, Adelia mentioned DAI, you know, they're going free float. What if they want to remove DAI from the 3 CRV pool? And if you really think about it, since DAI is literally in every single makeup pool in 3 CRV, in order for them, in the event that they don't want to use DAI anymore, they need to really make everyone basically unstake all these 3 CRV, break it up, and put it back and re-put it together. And we're talking about Curve and Convex having like $6 billion in total funds, and that kind of LP. And then if they want to change that is like that's like insane. Basically, that amount of reshuffling will be catastrophic. But for Wombat's design, basically, if DAI decides to free float, basically we drop emissions, we just move them to the side pool, and that's done. That doesn't affect any other pool. People's lives don't need to be, you know, adjusted in any way. And I think that's one of the things. And finally, not only we're capital efficient, we have multiple ways to protect people's funds, because so we invented an algorithm. It's called deep protection. So in the event that like UST, it goes to zero, basically it won't drain your pools. So that's really important, because, you know, like one of the things that really hurt us from that collapse that Adelia mentioned and like Marwan mentioned is that, you know, people lost confidence. And I think, you know, having like well-built stable coins like Helio, like Hey, and, you know, a mechanism to protect the end users from liquidity, because people always go like, oh, who do you need to protect most? Is really the LPs. Okay, LPs really make the system. People who put their hard-earned money into the ecosystem, you don't want them to lose any money. So you need things to, you know, make sure you have a good stable coin, you have good, you know, exchange that protects, you know, their assets. And I think that's why Wombat and Helio work so well together, because our end goal is to be safe and secure for the end user, to be, you know, and make it accessible and easy. So hopefully that kind of explains how different we are.
That does. Idea, I think, you know, you mentioned, you know, correctly, or, you know, very, you mentioned earlier that it's very important to kind of drive the education agenda when it comes to stablecoins or destablecoins in the case of Hey. There is a question here for community, and, you know, keen for you to share anything you can, but, you know, what is the impact of a significant change of BNB on Hey, and what does this mean for Hey as a destable coin? So I think people are keen to understand the relationship. I know you mentioned the liquid staking, but the actual, I think people are keen to understand, even at a high level, the relationship between the price of BNB and Hey.
Yeah, so, you know, this is something we have taken into consideration very much, you know, because we understand that BNB, while it's a token that we trust and love, is also it is subject to volatility as well. So we have a couple of safeguards in place. The first one, the most obvious one, is that the over collateralized ratio, right, of 66% means that we should have more than enough, you know, funds in BNB to cushion any impact. And if you see, you know, our website, our over collateralization now is not 1.52, but rather it's like around 2.6. So we have almost like 2.6 times the value of BNB, you know, in BNB to protect, you know, the value of Hey. Right. And the second thing, you know, that we have also checked is that we actually have a min cap for Hey right now. You know, we are a new project and we are cautious. Like we said, you know, we want to further the stablecoin agenda. And what kills that, you know, is if we act recklessly, right, and do not mitigate our risk appropriately. So, you know, currently our main cap is still, we control the main cap of Hey, so that it does not go, you know, uncontrollably high, and we do not have like enough BNB to cushion the impact. And I believe, you know, when we started out, and I think it's still the same for now, the main cap of Hey is about is the maximum min cap of Hey is 5% of the total value, the total market cap of BNB at any one point of time. So, that really ensures that, the BNB, there's more than enough value in BNB itself, right, to support Hey in any case. And, the last thing we also implement is like a liquidation mechanism. We basically, have an option to remind users, and this is completely optional, right? If you want to be notified of a liquidation, but once, you approach the threshold, we would basically try to inform you, reach out to you, so we don't have anyone like overexposing or stretching out, we don't have anyone who would have more Hey than what they should be having at any one point of time. So I think these are the steps that we have taken to fully ensure that we have enough value in BNB to support any like price issues. Like if the price of BNB goes down, then all that, yeah.
Really clear and really helpful and informative. Lastly, you have the BNB chain community, members of the community tuning in. Question we have is, what drew you to build on BNB chain in the first place? So maybe over to you, Alex.
So obviously we were part of Binance Incubation Lab Season 3. Like I kind of like have been saying this a lot, but we applied to Incubation Labs with an Excel document. I think I told Marwan a few times already. And I think the coolest thing was like, the team at the labs, they were like, oh, this guy might not be an idiot, and they can look at, oh, the algorithm makes sense and that kind of stuff. And obviously they incubated us and gave us a chance and gave us exposure and for us to give us a chance to build. And I think that's one of the main things why obviously we're on BNB chain. Other things is really good leadership and a good team. Like I met a lot of like Terra builders, and obviously, they spent their hard work and blood, sweat, and tears just building. And obviously, because of leadership on Terra, it kind of collapsed, right? So one of the things is like, if you build on a place, you don't want the chain, obviously, that you're building on to die because you have to restart all that kind of stuff. But BNB chain has great leadership, and I think that's one of the things why it's obviously like the alt layer 1 winner by far, without a doubt. The stability is unparalleled. There's obviously great people, up and coming DeFi builders like P-Stake, Stater, Helio, Anchor, all these guys, wanting to push, the kind of narrative on DeFi. And there's tons of users, community. And lastly, I think, BNB is an anomaly in this world in the sense that, it's gigantic centralized exchange, a gigantic decentralized exchange, a decentralized blockchain, tons of users and people. You need that for adoption and people to come into it. And I think as builders, you want as many people to be using your product as possible. And I don't think anyone else has that kind of retail power and actually kind of that direction and the leadership to be able to execute like BNB. And that's one of the reasons why, all the reasons why we chose to build on BNB chain.
That's really clear, and I think you're very right about the kind of the sheer demand and the size of the community. Both developers, also importantly users, right? Who are very keen to engage with these products in the first place. How about you, Delia? What would you say the Helio story is for wanting to build on BNB chain?
I think Alex has brought up many great points. The short answer would be two things, right? First is the passion, and secondly is the function, right? So in terms of the function, multiple things. Other than the obvious stats that BNB is one of the largest, TVL blockchains. It also like Alex said, has a lot of retail power, right? It has one of the most, or maybe the most, daily like active users in the crypto space, right? And if you want to build like a stable coin, with the whole ambition of mass adoption, where else is a better fit to enter in a space where, there is a lot of retail and daily users, using it every single day. And in terms of that, we also, identified that out of the major like blockchains, BNB is still really lacking a clear leader. In terms of the decentralized stablecoin space, in our opinion at least. And that's why, we feel like there's a gap in the market, product market fit, if you will, for the stablecoin. Hey, And in terms of passion, the team, our founders, although they are anonymous, they have been in the space for many years and know the chain very well. So obviously, it's really aligned with their expertise to build and to start Helio within the space. And of course, the BNB chain team, you guys have been incredibly supportive. Like Alex said, the leadership is great. It's a very bustling and almost underrated ecosystem. And we really hope to bring to help contribute to increasing like the BNB chain profile to the mass retail users out there in the world as well.
Appreciate it. Yeah, very much a joint effort, right? It's like,
yeah, of course,
it's the developers and the users that make it grow and thrive. So it's great to kind of hear your perspectives. And lastly, the future. What's on the roadmap? What are the things that people here tuning in or following Wombat or Helio? What should they get excited about? What's coming that you can share with us? Maybe. Adelia?
Yeah, maybe I'll go first. So a few things that's on the radar for us. The Helio team has been working very hard to build like an ecosystem for Hey. Basically we are working with metaverses, or like all sorts of like DeFi, GameFi projects to use Hey as a form of currency, really just expanding where you can use Hey to offer, more utility for our community. So I think that's something, we really want to do and achieve. After all, right, what's the point if you don't have an ecosystem for you to use Hey? The second thing, which I think is incredibly exciting, is, we are looking to potentially TGE in a few months. And then subsequently from that, we can launch our Helio token, which is our governance token, and then also start our DAO, where, we can invite our community to start participating, in the future and roadmap of our Helio, of the protocol, right? Which, could be taking Helio cross-chain, all sorts of things. We really, hope our community, stay tuned for that and get excited. I think, the next few months, we have planned so many marketing activities, AMAs, and I think, it'll be a very exciting time to join us, basically.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's a lot of big news coming. So
yeah.
Alex, I don't know if you can top that, but do you share maybe?
I'm sure he can, maybe.
Absolutely. Well, so obviously we have a lot. We're as a team and at our like Wombat ecosystem, we're really trying to push the DeFi kind of narrative on BNB chain. Obviously, thanks to both of you here and your teams. Obviously we have the WOM wars that are heating up. Thanks to them, we locked 21 million in WOM tokens. We became, I think we're the 6th largest by TVL, which is amazing, especially in the bear market. I think that's really cool. And I think, but even cooler is that all these protocols they have great teams are pushing and working and competing with each other to, build a better project, a better DeFi for BNB chain. So, obviously, all these projects, there's even more projects coming out, with like synthetic protocols, borrowing, lending, leverage yield farms, trading, all that kind of stuff, which is great because it adds more value. And I think, Helio is in touch with a few of them already. So, exciting things. So I think the most exciting thing is like, having all these DeFi protocols work together, promote each other, make sure, that education is there to make, like kind of like a flywheel effect. Yep. And lastly, after we have bribes and governance out, I think there's going to be a huge war with everybody here trying to fight for emissions. And ultimately, Wombat's goal is to go multi-chain and cross-chain. One of the things is like, we believe the world is multi-chain, but obviously the center of the world is BNB chain. So, our multi-chain goal and cross-chain goal is it's exciting. So it'll bring a lot of like real yield back to the users and sustainable. I think that's the main goal. So that's our roadmap and our future, and we're working hard to continually improve.
Well, congratulations first on kind of breaking into the top 10 in terms of TVL on BNB chain, and for sharing that kind of that insight into where things are headed. There was actually a question about Wombat's future going multi-chain, and I think it's great that you can share it with the community. So thank you. I realize we are at time. But before we draw a close, obviously I want to thank everyone who is tuning in. I've seen many different countries actually and geographies tune in. So thank you so much for joining. Hoping this has been insightful, helpful, and that if it is the first time you've come across Wombat or Helio, that you've learned something new. And of course, a very, very special thank you to Alex and Adelia for joining, especially so late, where they are, to share more about their story, of what they're building, and kind of how it's creating impact for the ecosystem, and kind of, you know, in the stablecoin space as a whole. Before you drop off, how should people stay up to date on Helio, Adelia? What's the Twitter? Either your Twitter or Helio's Twitter.
Yeah, you know, for all the updates, you know, the campaigns, feel free to follow Helio Protocol's Twitter page, which is Helio_money. Before I hand it over to Alex, I just want to plug that Wombat and Helio were doing, you know, a campaign for this event. You know, there's a prize pool of 650 BUSD to be won. You know, you just simply have to look for the Gleam campaign in the BNB Chain's announcement tweet. And then if you leave a comment about your favorite DeFi strategy using Wombat Exchange, a Helio protocol, then you can stand to win from this prize pool. So if you want to know more campaigns like that, you know, obviously stay in touch with our Twitter page. You can also join our Discord channel. We have, like, you know, almost daily events, community AMAs, quizzes, lots of fun ways to engage with the community and win prizes. So yeah, very bustling community, I must say. Yeah.
There's so much happening. I forgot.
There's so much happening.
That's like the most important part. Thank you.
That was the longest plug I've ever made.
The most important plug.
Yeah.
Everyone, do follow that campaign. I think that's very exciting. And thank you, Dita, for sharing that. And Alex, to stay in touch with Wombat.
Yeah, just obviously our twitter.com/Wombat Exchange, or go to our Telegram. On there, I'm always there to reply. I think I might be one of the only founders that replies in person. So you can direct all your questions and comments to me, and I'm always glad to answer for the community. And then, yeah, what Adelia just said, that the plug, I'm plugging again. But yeah, I just want to say thanks you two for being here. It was a pleasure again, Marwin and Adelia. It was fun.
Thanks again, everyone. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.
Good day.
Thank you.